Hi, my name is Sabrine and I'm Syrian. I think the top three human rights problems in Syria are probably lack of freedom of speech, freedom of political association, and also freedom of assembly. It's basically been the one party for the last 40 years or so. And as I said, because there isn't that freedom of political association, the elections haven't been free. My grandfather, actually, I think it was the 60s, he came out through the skilled migration scheme. I'm a fighter, so for me, when I get discriminated against or I get told that I can't do something, then I'm going to go out and show you that I can. So when I get told that you're a woman, you're oppressed, you're not capable of doing anything, then that kind of spurred me on to say, okay, I'm going to set up a project or an organisation to change the world. And so that's what I did. And for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been running the project called Green Scarf Day, which aims to raise money and empower women who have been disempowered in societies overseas where women don't have any rights.
I'm Bakhtiar. I'm Uyghur. Since 1949, our East Turkestan been occupied by China and given us a new name as Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. Since the day we've been treated as a second-class citizen in our home country. So there is unfairness of the human rights and justice in our country. The mainly is for the Uyghur kids since from the age of 6, they've been taught in Chinese. So later on, all their movement and education, everything is going to be taught in Chinese. In our workplaces, we don't have rights to practice or pray our religion. And our cultural heritage been demolished by Chinese. The ancient city of Kashgar, which has 2,000 years of history, now being demolished since 2006. I came to Australia as an international student at the beginning, and I came right after my parents came. We had to claim political protection as a refugee. My personal hope is study hard in university in Australia, study human legal system of Australia and the international laws. Economic interests shouldn't be override our human rights. The Australian government can let the China or let the world hear our voice.
My name's Mariam and I'm Afghan. There are several human rights issues in Afghanistan. I think the fundamental ones that seems to get a lot of focus at the moment is women's rights. And I guess the other thing that is also quite an enormous issue at the moment is that we've still got foreign intervention. We've got Afghanistan has been occupied for many years now. Poverty and unemployment all stems from the fact that there hasn't been stability in Afghanistan. That stability hasn't been there since, one could argue, since the 1970s. My uncle sponsored us to come over here. So our journey obviously started off in Afghanistan, but we moved to India to escape from the war and then made it to Australia. The challenges facing Afghans in general is probably, similar challenges facing most Muslims living in Australia. And fundamentally, a lot of those issues tend to impact on Muslim women, particularly those who choose to wear the hijab. I've said this on many occasions. I am definitely not a fan of the burqa. However, it is a fundamental right of any human being living in Australia to be able to exercise their freedom of expression. And if a woman chooses to, is not forced to, but chooses to wear the burqa, that is her right. I came to this country with, hopes and aspirations as every other young individual does. And for me, for a long time, I wanted to desperately become a lawyer. Luckily, I've, managed to pull that off and I work in the legal industry now. What I want to do with my skills is hopefully get to a point in the future where I can utilise those skills to help advance the cause of Muslims in Australia and across the world.
I am Mohammed. I'm from Ghana. Ghana has in the past enjoyed some developments in many fields, but human rights is still an issue at the moment. And the biggest problems that are facing our country is in the area of unemployment and poverty. At the moment, we have more than 40% of illiteracy rate in the country, and there is also a big inequality when it comes to education, gender inequality in education. Yeah, as part of trying to solve some of these human rights issues, I set up organizations in my community, call it Youth Against Deprivation. Our aim is to educate the rural dwellers, especially the youth. Yeah, my challenges are the same as challenges of any African person of African descent. But personally, I don't see much involvement of the African community, the Ghanaian community, in the bigger Australian society. There are problems with racism. That is a massive area. And it is my hope to set up an African study center just to make sure that I am able to boost the African human rights agenda in Australia. That is what I want to do.